Don't you just love how MXGP3 has 2 more weather condition options than MXGP 2019? Oh, God, dude. Oh, say, can you see what's up, my dude skis? Team USA sucks, bro. Oh, my God, those Americans can't ride motocross. What are they doing, dog? By the way, just saying, I don't agree with that at all, but that's what this video is all about, because I can only imagine the way everybody's thinking after the past 2 years of MX Nations, right? USA, what have we got, like 5th and 6th and shit in the actual MX Nations, like overall finishes the past 2 years? It's not been pretty, but I wanted to come in here and explain something I think a lot of people forget, okay? Listen, that MX Nations race, 9 times out of 10, is way more catered towards all the other countries as far as like the tracks they're used to, the compounds they're used to, all that kind of stuff, than it is the United States. I mean, how often do they even come to the United States for the MX Nations? It's like every 5, 6, 7 years, right? And then every other time, they're basically on just a standard MXGP track for an MX Nations race. So all of those other countries, see, the thing about it is that's what they're used to, okay? That's what they race on. That's their standard series that they race on every single year. So to all those other countries, MX Nations typically is just another race for them. Whereas for the U.S. riders, it's like going to a whole nother world, because we don't even race on that. The United States AMA national tracks are not even close to how the MXGP tracks are. It's like a totally different animal. So, and I know it sounds like an excuse when you go in there and say, well, we're not used to those kind of tracks, or that's not our kind of tracks. Like I get it, okay? I understand that sounds like an excuse, but you got to understand how important it is and how different it is depending on what kind of, like, standard track compounds you grow up riding on and what you ride on the most. It makes all of the difference in the world. Like, seriously though, guys, it really does. So, and I mean, good God, rain on Assen. Can that get any more against like the U.S. riding style? I mean, good God, can that get any more favored for the European riders? Literally a mutter on this, like, you know, sandy loam vibe. It couldn't get any more catered towards the GP riders. A muddy Assen track. Like, literally, you couldn't get it any more, you know, more catered towards the European riders if you tried. You couldn't do it, dog. I'm serious. Like, and even last year, with the Redbud, that is the most MXGP looking Redbud I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, what the hell was that last year? I don't know how they made that track so different. You know, the one out of every 5, 6, 7 years that they do come to the United States, hell, they prep the tracks like it's a fucking MXGP track anyways. It's like, holy shit. Like, it's just crazy. But, yeah, like, we didn't do too hot. MX Nations 2019, but what can you really expect? I mean, it would literally be like, you know, how different a sandy, you know, in it, not all sands are the same, okay? Like, Assen sand is completely different from Southwick sand. You can't even compare it in the same way because it's completely different. So don't get that idea in your head like, oh, well, you know, you guys race on Southwick, you know how to race on sand. It's not even the same kind of fucking dirt compound. It's not even the same at all. Everything's different. Everything about the European tracks are different. And the thing about it is that's typically what they ride on in the MXGP series. Like, it's just another race to those dudes, but it's not for the US riders because we don't race on that. Like, let me just kind of flip this script for you. Let me just kind of, you know, flip all this around to where if it was actually in more of the favor of the United States riders in the MX Nations races versus how it is now, where it's 9 times out of the 10, it's in the favor of the European riders. So, and this is all imaginary, okay? Just bear with me here. Keep up with me. So, if it was like, if you flipped everything around, it would be as if the MX Nations race was 9 times out of 10 on a United States national track. And every once in a while, they would go over and do one Europe race. You know how every once in a while they'll come over here and do one race in the United States. Well, it would be just like that. And it would be as if all of the competitors on those MX Nations races were United States riders. So they were sitting there riding on those tracks every year. They were used to them. And 9 out of the 10 times they had an MX Nations race, it was either on Washougal, Hangtown, Budds Creek, like all those kind of tracks. Let's just say that was the case. And every single one of the participants of the MX Nations was a United States rider, except one European team. We just go out and pull one team from Europe and have them come over and race. I swear to God, they wouldn't do not 1/4 as good as it seems like they're doing now. They wouldn't. They just wouldn't. And so the biggest point of this video is stop trying to compare something that's not comparable. Because first of all, it's not even on what they're riding on. Like, it's not. Like, it's not even the same. It'd be like, okay, so as different as Assen, mud Assen is to a United States rider, is the same difference as taking a European MXGP rider and telling them to race Anaheim 1 Supercross with all the United States dudes. I promise you, they'd be lucky to get a top 10. They'd look like they didn't even know how to fucking ride a dirt bike, period. I promise you, dog. So it's all circumstantial. You see what I'm saying? Like, the only way you're ever going to get it even to where you can actually like compare U.S. riders to European riders, the only way you'd ever do that is if 50% of the MX Nations were in the United States and 50% of them were over in the other countries. That's the only way you'd be able to do that, and they're never going to do that because they try to like basically go to as many different countries as they can, but the problem is that's what they do in the MXGP series as well. So all them dudes sitting there riding them MXGP series, they get all that experience and training on all these different tracks every single year, whereas we're over here only riding in the United States. So it's a completely different animal in that sense, and it just frustrates me that people try to compare it, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the European riders. They're hauling ass. Jeffrey Hurling's, he came over here and whooped some ass on fucking Ironman or whatever that was. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm just saying the overall results would be night and day difference if it was just even on, like, where they went to for the MX Nations tracks. But I'm serious, 9 out of 10 of them are basically on an MXGP track, and then every once in a while they'll come over here, and even when they come over here, they still prep it like an MXGP track, you see what I'm saying? So it's not even remotely even in that sense, and still, at the end of the day, it's just one race. You know how many people can do good in just one race? And they couldn't hold a light in an actual full-blown championship series? There's a lot of dudes out there like that. The only way you'd ever be able to accurately compare like the United States riders to the European riders is if you had a full, an actual full motocross series and half of the tracks were in the United States and half of them was in Europe. That's the only way you'd ever be able to do that. And I just don't think that's ever going to happen. And so trying to compare it off of one race a year, like, it's way more in the favor 9 times out of 10 for the European riders and their styles and the track compounds that they normally ride on, all that kind of stuff. I don't even see how you can really question that, because it is. Like, it just is what it is. I don't care who you are. You can't really question that it's 9 times out of 10 way more in the favor of the European riders as far as the actual track itself. But even on top of all that, then it's a mud race. You know how many people can do good in a mud race and can't do good on a normal race? Again, I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm just saying, like, a lot of times, even in the United States, when there's a mud race, you'll have fucking privateers getting podiums and shit. Whereas in a normal race, they would never, ever be able to do that. Or you'll have one of your typical, like, really fast dudes, something will happen to them in the mud race, and they won't do as good as they normally would do because it's not as consistent, Like, I'm just saying the mud race really allows anybody to win in a sense. And I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying it's not a good... mud races are not really a good, like, representation of everybody's true speed. It's really not. It's not a good representation of where everybody's at on skill and speed and all that. It's just not it's not good for that at all, in my opinion. Now, it's okay to have one or two mud races every once in a while, but as far as that one race that everybody's looking at to see who's the best country, you probably shouldn't have a mud race on that. And I know they couldn't help that. That's just the way it was, but I'm just saying, once you have a mudder, all the results and finishes kind of go out the window in a certain sense. They really do, because then it's like, I mean, good God, you know, it's not even the same thing anymore. It's not even the same kind of race anymore at that point. But either way, I just think you guys need to chill out with the super comparing the United States riders to the European riders, because you can't even accurately compare it. They race one race a year and come to the United States like every 6 or 7 years. So how in God's green earth could you accurately ever compare that? You cannot do it. You can't do it. And not to mention, we ride Supercross more than half of the year, whereas they're just sitting there on those MXGP tracks and training for motocross all year long, whereas we've got more than half of the year where we're training and racing and doing Supercross. Like, if you really, really want to have this shit even, and I know we're just talking about motocross here, but if you really, really want to have this shit, like, you know, U.S. riders versus European riders and shit like that, you better bring all them MXGP riders over and put them on the line in Anaheim 1 with Tomac and Webb and, you know, Barsha and Anderson and Osborne and all them dudes. Put them on the line, Anaheim 1 Supercross. Then we can start talking about who's better, who's not better. But you can't just do it. You can't start making these comparisons off of one individual random-ass motocross race, whereas it's just like, it's not even even or fair how often they come to the United States. And it's never going to be that way, because it's always been more of an MXGP style, an MXGP catered to type event. It's always been that way. So you see what I'm saying? Like, it's always going to be that way. But, yeah, the actual MXGP, or the MX Nations Race 2019, wow, that was fun, looking through a fucking basically, like, totally rained over GoPro the whole time he was watching the actual live race. Sorry to some of you guys that paid for that. Good God. I didn't pay for it. I just watched the highlights of it on YouTube. But, man, you guys couldn't figure out anything better for the camera on that? Woo! That's a little bit gnarly there, but either way, United States will have some wrecks in the mud on a track that we never ride on in our entire life. I can't blame them. Like, I'm not disappointed in the United States at all for getting 6th overall or whatever. Like, I'm literally not even disappointed in the slightest. It's like, what do you expect? It's like taking those MXGP dudes and saying, hey, come over here and race Anaheim 1 for one race out of the year and never ride on those kind of tracks any other times of the year. Just do it for one race in 1 year. It's like, good God. Like, some of you guys that are really thinking that the United States... Oh, by the way, we didn't even send over our technically fastest dude that we have, which is Tomac, right? We didn't even send him over this year. So even more so of not really being able to compare, you know, directly like that. And of course, Tomac did go to Redbud last year, but I'm telling you, good God, that was not a Redbud that I've ever seen before. That was insanity how they made that Redbud so much more of a European... I don't even know how they did that. I'm still in disbelief on how they made that Redbud. It was like an MXGP Redbud. Literally. That's what it was. It was so bizarre. It's like you took an MXGP track and just plopped it on Redbud's location. That's literally what it was last year. But either way, I'm not trying to like stir up any feathers here or anything like that. I'm just saying, don't start getting cocky about, you know, the Europeans are so much faster, United States sucks at, whatever it is. Like, don't start getting so hardcore about that, because if we flip this whole script around and made it more, not even that it has to be like more catered towards us, but just even on the tracks that they go to. Just make it even. It would be a whole different result. I just have to tell you right now, it'd be a whole different result. And we're not even talking about bringing them over to Supercross. You bring them over to Supercross, oh God, it's going to be disgraceful for the European riders. You bring them over to Supercross. And, of course, you've got a lot of European riders that come over and do well in Supercross. You do. But my specific thing that I'm talking about here is taking somebody that all they ever do is ride MXGP and then throw them into a pro full-blown Supercross race. Boom, just like that. They're not going to do that good. It's just like taking somebody that spends more than half the year on Supercross and then shoving them into this completely alienated, different track compound, different track design, European motocross track and saying, hey, come out here and do the best you can. It's the same difference as bringing a MXGP European rider over for one Supercross race and being like, hey, just do the best you can. You know what I mean? It's the same difference. Like, so be careful. I'm just saying, be careful anytime you try to really, really take it like it's the gospel whenever the results of the MX of Nations of an individual year, like, take it with a grain of salt, man, because it don't mean everything. It ain't everything as far as which country's actually the fastest. Like I say, hell, it's just one race. You know how many people can do good in one race? Like, I'm just saying it'd be a different ball game if they came to the United States more. And it was more even in that sense, and if we rode more on motocross and it wasn't so supercross focused in the United States, right, it would be a whole different animal. I'm just saying right now it'd be a whole different ball game. But either way, it was, kind of weird. Cooper went down into Anderson. That was bizarre as hell. Could never really get back up from there. But I honestly, I didn't expect anything more. I mean, what more could you have expected? It's just like, even if there was no mud on the ground, it's still a completely different kind of track that we're not used to. And all the other dudes have been riding the MXGP tracks. That's just another day for them. Literally, it's just another day for them. Like, good God, man. But either way, just want to get in here and talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of people blow that out of proportion and try to start doing all this comparing and, well, shit, look, these other dudes winning the MX and Nations past year. What's going on with the United States? Like, what's going on, bro? No, it's not even like that. Like, you need to calm your titties down, boys, because it's not even like that. I'm just saying. It's not even like that at all. I look at it like it's to the point now where motocross and supercross is kind of becoming like one entity, one entity, in the sense of, if you're really, really good at supercross, but you suck ass at motocross, people look down on you for that. Or if you're really, really good at motocross, but absolute shit at supercross, people look down on you for that in the United States. You have to be good at both in the United States to really be that, like, legend and that full-blown champion. It wasn't really that way back in the day with, like, McGrath and stuff, but it's more so that way now, I feel like. Like, if all you've ever done was won a couple Supercross titles and you've never won an outdoor title, you kind of haven't even really proven yourself, or vice versa. If you've only won a couple of outdoor titles and you've never won a Supercross title, you haven't even really proven yourself. And so that's what I'm saying. It's just a totally different atmosphere in the United States than it is in the other countries. And so when you try to have that one race a year, it's just uncomparable. It's just uncomparable. So, either way, that's just my opinions on it, boys. Appreciate all the support. See you guys back on the next video. Later, dudes.